Everyone, now the markets are waiting with bated breath as Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene is to deliver his very first medium-term budget policy statement this Wednesday in Cape Town. The International Monetary Fund last week revised South Africa's growth forecast for 2014 to 1.4% from 2.8%. Analysts have predicted that the minister will seek a broader tax base to make up for the sluggish economy. Billy Joubert is an attorney and director for transfer pricing at Deloitte, a company whose operations depend on the pronouncements of the treasury. Welcome. Good to have you on the program again. Billy, let's take a look at the main challenges that are facing our new finance minister. As we say, it's his first midterm. Lots of challenges in the economy. I imagine he's a lot of pressure right now.
Yeah, it's probably quite a good thing that he gets the chance to actually do the midterm first, because I think the budget is that much bigger and that there's that much more hype around it. But nevertheless, there are significant challenges. As you pointed out, the growth rate is lower than we were hoping and expecting. And we have quite ambitious tax collection increase targets. So for this financial year ending ending February 2015, it's actually projected to be almost $1 trillion, 993 billion, which is 10% up on last year. And I'm sure you can appreciate if you're trying to collect 10% or squeeze 10% more tax revenue out of an economy that's only growing by 1.4%, you face significant challenges.
Yeah. So that, in your opinion, is possibly the biggest challenge he faces at this point?
Well, it's the one I'm most aware of as a tax practitioner, but there are lots of other ones. We've got major issues with growth because one of the problems is the lack of power. We've been waiting for Medupi to come on stream. Eskom's facing very significant challenges. So there's a limited amount that the finance minister can actually do. He can try and create the right environment, but he's dependent on his other colleagues in cabinet and elsewhere to actually deliver, and in the parastatals, to deliver and try and spend money effectively. So the one challenge is raising the money. The other challenge is trying to make sure it's spent as effectively as possible. Yeah.
You mentioned growth, and that's something that we really do focus on as a country. What do you think our potential is?
Well, we're constrained obviously by the global economic environment, which is very difficult right now. But I think there are many things we can do in our own environment to try and encourage growth. I've mentioned one of them, which is to provide more power, because we're actually facing power shortages. But the other thing is we have to create employment. In every sense, that's probably our most important thing from a social point of view, from a tax collections point of view. And it's a very complex, that's a whole value chain, starting with education, also including our labour laws, the whole environment. And obviously one has to do that in a collaborative way. So I should think that for the government as a whole, that must be the most imperative thing that we should be focusing on, and that will be the biggest contributor to growth. But right now we face with significant challenges in terms of getting beyond that 1.4% that we're achieving currently.
Yeah. I mean, it is needed. When we look at the rest of the, let's just say the continent. Let's not look at the world, but the continent. How are we faring in terms of growth?
We're not faring nearly as well. Our growth rates are much lower, but it's very hard to compare us directly with other African countries. I think Africa is a big place, in fact, and one almost has to look at regions. And South Africa has a very specific history, is facing specific challenges. But what's interesting is to see the extent to which South African-based multinationals are seeing growth into Africa as being the way in which they're going to achieve growth. Yeah. So seeing the limited growth potential in the local market, their plans very much are into Africa.
On going into Africa, and you see companies that are succeeding, doing exceptionally well in that African market and growing their base. What are the main issues facing South Africa's CFOs?
Well, the CFO survey that Deloitte did recently, basically that's one of the key trends they indicated, that 80% of the CFOs that they interviewed in the South African market have significant expansion plans into Africa.
Okay.
I think apart from that, they are somewhat pessimistic compared to other African CFOs, because this was a pan-African study in relation to growth prospects in South Africa. So you can easily link those 2 points, that here we are at a different phase, or many companies are at a more mature phase of their development. And in order to grow, they need to export their products or services, and Africa is probably the biggest, and it's pretty evenly spread between West and East Africa. Those are the destinations for future growth.
Yeah, quite ironic, isn't it, that we need to, constantly companies wanting to look, offshore and overseas and at other continents. Meantime, the wealth lies here in the continent, and companies are tapping into this in a very big way.
Yes, but Africa also has significant challenges. It's not easy.
It's not easy to do business in Africa.
Exactly,
and many
for many
people
reasons,
have said that.
Yeah,
many people. Let's, in terms of other things, we've looked at companies now, which of course, make up our economy. This midterm budget, how important is it?
I think we don't really look for tax policy at this point, because tax policy, we get those announcements at the time of the main budget speech. There might be some indication as to how the Davis Committee is doing and what reports we can expect out of the Davis Committee, although that's an ongoing process. We would be very interested to see how we're doing in terms of revenue collections for the year to date. Minister Nene early in July said we were on target, which is quite surprising actually. It'll be interesting to see, given the events of the year, including the big platinum strike. So it'll be interesting to see to what extent we are actually on target with the revenue collections. And then the expenditure framework, I think that will be an important thing, to how we're going to contain expenditure, wage demands, etc., because that's a huge challenge facing the government, containing expenditure and trying to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of expenditure.
All right, well, let's see what happens. This is all happening on Wednesday when our new finance minister delivers his very, very first midterm budget speech. So we're looking forward to that. And then here on the program, if I'm not mistaken, I think we'll have him as our guest on Thursday morning to unpack some issues. We'll be having one of our TNAs, and that'll happen this week, Thursday. So if you've got questions and some issues that you would like to raise with our finance minister after he delivers that midterm, that's the platform for you to do it here on Morning Live. Thanks for giving us a bit of a preview of what to expect. Billy Joubert is the director at Deloitte, talking to us here on Morning Live. Thank you.
Pleasure.